Let's sit nice and tall. Close the eyes. Take a breath in and a breath out. Allow yourself to feel grounded, settled in, present. Allow yourself to be peaceful in this moment, to be silent and still. Take great refuge in the silence and the stillness. Notice that there's joy in that stillness and in that silence. It's a quiet joy. It's a very simple joy. It's also the most true joy that you will ever know, because it is not dependent upon anything for its existence. It simply is, always there, always peaceful, always joyful. And all you need to do is just go there. Be with that. Easiest way is to close the eyes, settle in, and concentrate. Maybe even meditate. But the more that you allow those outside noises and happenings to distract you, the more difficult it becomes to just go inside. So as you sit here, just recognize that it really is a choice. You either go in or you go out. At this stage of the game, we can't have both. And draw the hands together in front of the heart. And together we'll lift our voices in one Om, followed by the invocation mantras. Taking a breath in. Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Ganana Antva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jestarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrinvanuti Bisidha Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Bhirvajini Vati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Devo Brahataf Parvata Da Saraswati Yajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Gritachi Shagmam No Vacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. You can release the hands, flutter the eyes open. And for those beautiful individuals who have been here all weekend and have taken a vow of silence for the weekend, you are now released from your vow. If you wish to continue in silence, you have your badge, and you can continue to wear that. And for our visiting students, if you see someone with a badge that says, I'm in silence, please just know that they're continuing their silence from the weekend. And don't ask them how they are. Or say hello. They won't take offense. So what a beautiful weekend it's been. Yeah, such a wonderful, wonderful experience. It always is. Always. It's difficult, right? It's hard. It's not easy sitting and being, but it's necessary. So in the opening, I said, it's a choice. Right now, it's a choice. It's either inside or it's outside. We can't have both right now, not at this stage of the game. And in the yoga tradition, that is so obvious. That's why there's so many paths you can follow. The Eightfold Path of Patanjali, whichever one of the traditional paths it is, Patanjali's is the most typical. You start with ethics. So while you're learning about how to choose the inside, and you're choosing the inside over the outside, you're also learning about nonviolence, non-stealing, truthfulness, non-grasping, economy of energy, cleanliness, contentment, discipline, self-study, and devotion, the 10 ethics. And then that prepares you to start practicing the asana. Now notice how in the United States, people go asana first, and they don't even know about the ethics. But the ethics are actually the first and second steps. So the 5 yama, the 5 niyama, and then once you have some understanding of those, then you start practicing asana. And then after you get some skill in the asana, then you start practicing pranayama. And once you start getting some skill in the pranayama, then you start practicing pratyahara. So pranayama is the breath work, and pratyahara is the detachment, healthy detachment. If we put the pratyahara first, then it becomes a psychological issue, and it becomes kind of a cutting oneself off from the world and thinking that that's superior. And that's not what it is at all. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment is not saying, I don't care. Detachment is actually the practice of knowing how to care, the appropriate way to care, how to support, how to be present, how to not be invasive, manipulative. So the detachment in yoga is actually a really powerful practice. It gives you the ability to be the most powerful partner of anybody in your life, whether it's a romantic partner or a sibling or a parent or a child or a friend. It gives you the ability to be even a better person at that. Because when we go into these relationships, we go with expectations always. And expectations are a lot of attachment. So when we enter into relationship with some even small level of skill at healthy detachment, that relationship automatically becomes healthier. Automatically. So we get some skill at that, and then we move into dharana. And dharana is concentration. And then from concentration, dhyana, it comes naturally. It evolves from that. Dhyana is meditation. Meditation, you can't just sit down and meditate. Unless you're like, Amma or something, Thich Nhat Hanh. Or one of those saintly individuals who that's all they do. You and I, we have to sit down and concentrate first. That's why concentration comes first. Because we have to sit down and concentrate first. But you can't really concentrate unless you have a healthy understanding of what detachment is, of what breath work is, of how to sit, and your conscience is in good order because you practice ethics. So Patanjali's Eightfold Path is a beautiful science. And it's a path to be followed because it's just so eloquent. And it naturally leads to the natural expression of meditation. And then from there, the natural expression of samadhi. And the word samadhi is oftentimes thought to be a kind of a woo-woo word like enlightenment and self-realization. And what's all that? Special powers. And it's like, no, sorry, but it's actually not that at all. It's to know yourself. And not to egotistically know yourself like I know myself. No, it's to know yourself. If I stripped away every single role that I play, every single name that I attach to myself, every single expectation that I have, every single grasping, every single avoidance, if I strip them all away, who am I? Who am I really? If I stripped away all my stories, who am I? Well, you follow the Eightfold Path to Patanjali and you find out. Because that's the path you take to find out. And no, I'm not going to give it away. You have to walk the Eightfold Path and you have to find out. Because your discovery of the truth of your own self is two things. First, it is the exact same as mine. But second, it's exactly different. Because you have your own particular embodiment, your own particular life experience, your own particular obstacles to overcome and strengths to enhance. You have your own way of coming to understand things. And so everything that leads up to that moment of self-realization is different for us, even though it's the same. It's absolutely different. But the moment is like climbing over a fence, right? It's like you're climbing. It's hard to climb over a fence, especially like the ones that have barbed wire on top. So like I part of my youth I spent in farmland, and like there's like sharp things everywhere, But isn't that like life? There's sharp things everywhere. But once you get over to the other side, it's the same for everybody. So once we discover the truth of the self, once the truth of the self is settled into our heart, then it's the exact same. And why is it the exact same? Because we are the exact same. We are the exact same. We're one. Outside of this embodiment, that embodiment, that embodiment, that embodiment, that embodiment, outside of that, when you go inside to the truth of the self, we are the exact same. But first we have to walk that path, climb the fence, avoid the barbed wire if possible, bandage up the wounds, do the work, and then eventually come to unity. Does that make sense? So we have this beautiful Eightfold Path. Now, once we start traversing that path, once we start gaining skill, and I don't mean opinion, I mean like real skill, applied skill. Once we're able to truly sit in the midst of discomfort and be at peace, have somebody yelling at you, insulting you, cursing you, and your blood pressure's not going up because be able to see the world clearly, know where it is that you're needed, and go there and provide what's needed if you're able to. When you're able to remove yourself from a situation that you're not needed in, even if the ego wants you to be there to fix things. When you have acquired skills to live a life of appropriateness, spiritual appropriateness, then the choice is no longer relevant. You initially choose the inside, and then eventually you walk through the outside. You're in the world, not of it. Right now, most people are of the world. We look at the billboard and say, oh, cute sweater, I'm going to run over and get that. Oh, look at that movie. By the way, if you haven't seen Wicked, go see it. It's wonderful. It's just singing popular with my granddaughter. But right now, we're very much of that. It's like that's what defines us. What movie did you go see? What concert did you go see? What restaurant did you go eat at? What group of friends do you hang out with? Beautiful scarf, by the way. What clothes do you wear? What color is your hair? This is what we think defines us. But when you choose the inside, then what we come to find out is that stuff actually it doesn't define us at all. It's just decoration. It's decoration that means nothing. Because eventually it's going to change. You're not going to wear that sweater all year, right? No, of course not. Are you going to wear that Beetlejuice shirt forever? No, of course not. As a matter of fact, a couple hours, by tomorrow you'll change, if not later today, right? So it's very transient. Everything that you apply to yourself from the outside world is extremely transient. But the innermost self is not transient at all. Not at all. The innermost self is constant. And that is why initially I said to you, that peace, that stillness, that joy that exists in the depths of yourself is always there. It doesn't automatically become created because you decided to look at it. No, it's always there. Always. You know, like, did you ever lose a favorite piece of jewelry, or you thought you did? And eventually you just gave up and was like, well, I don't know where it is. It's nowhere to be found. Oh. And then one day you're like cleaning and there's something shiny like underneath of the radiator and you're like, what is that? And you go over and it was there all the time. You know, it's like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? She was always able to go home. So are you. You are always able to tap into that because it's always there. It's never left you. Not for a moment. As a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. You left it. You walked away from it. You chose differently. You did. That is your responsibility. You chose the outside, not the inside. And if you're suffering, and you're suffering egotistically, if you're suffering and you're complaining, if you're suffering and you're running away, if you're trying to suffer, that's all choosing the outside. And that peacefulness, that stillness, that little joy, she's just sitting there. She's like, whatever. You'll be done with these childish endeavors soon enough. And I'll just be here, waiting. And I suppose the problem in some way, shape, or form is that when we finally, something happens in our life and we finally decide, you know what, hey, I'm going to turn inside. That little bubble of peace within ourselves doesn't open its arms up and say, oh my God, you're here, finally. It's just like, yeah, okay, good. You're here, whatever. Yet you go out there and you've got people all over the place being like, oh my God, you're here, making you all kinds of important, building up the ego. But in here, it's humility. It's humble. It's just being without needing to have the importance, the popularity, the attention, the limelight. It's just being. And for those of you who are in the retreat this weekend, I hope that is a little bit of what you learned, is that it's just about being. And it's a balance to the outside world, especially now on your path. Especially now. Because now is the hardest time of your path. It's not hard later. People are afraid of what happens later. They're like, yeah, but if I really stick to this path, what am I going to be like? Who am I going to be? It makes me afraid. It makes me worry. That's nothing to worry about. That is nothing for you to worry about. You will be just fine. I can promise you that. The hard work, what you should be concerned with, what you should be paying attention to is the work now. How often do you choose that and not this? How often do you distract yourself, run away, avoid? How often? How often do you contribute to your own suffering needlessly? That's what you need to be concerned about. Because I don't know, that's some fearful stuff. You know, you've all lived a life, would you agree? Right? So the hard work is right now in turning that around and saying, no, thank you. No, thank you. Not going to take the alcohol. Not going to take the drugs. Not going to take the excessive sex. Not going to take the distraction, whatever that happens to be. No, thank you. Not going to do it. Because I know. I know where it leads. It leads me further away from this. Now, in terms that we can really make very simple and plain, you have a physical heart here. It's pumping blood throughout your body, and you know you have to keep it healthy, otherwise your body won't be healthy. And so you go and you get some exercise, and you do some walking. Maybe you have a pedometer on your phone and checking for your 10,000 steps every day. You know, Do we do that for our spiritual heart? Do we say, I got to exercise my spiritual heart? I got to exercise my capacity to love, my capacity to be compassionate, my capacity to be patient, my capacity to wait and have faith in the waiting. Do we sit and actively think about that? I might be a little crazy, but I know I do. And I know that sometimes I have some great friends. So I was a practicing Buddhist for a while in my earlier life, part of the Nichiren Daishonin tradition. And many of my friends would say, you get to a certain point on this path and you invite that in because you want to strengthen your spiritual heart. You want to. So you're no longer like, keep it away from me, but I want that. No, you're just like, whatever, bring it on. Bring it on. I know peace is more powerful. And I know peace is the truth of myself. So that's where the hard work is being willing to say no thank you to that outside world a little bit. Dealing with, accepting the changes that are going to happen in your life as a result of that. And using that energy that you have conserved as a result of not throwing it all out there to go here. That is the hardest thing in the world at first. But if you do it for just a little while, and I don't mean 27 days because that's a hunk of crap. Okay? Just new habits are not born in 27 days. You know when new habits are born? When you realize that the new behavior is far more important, healthy, and worthwhile than the old behavior. That's when a new habit is born. And that requires proof. I know, I keep doing that to you this weekend, don't I? But it's the truth. So don't put it on your calendar, okay, from February 1st to February 27th, this is what I'm going to do every day, and then it will be established. No, actually, it might not be. It all depends on the relationship that you've cultivated with the new behavior. If you've come into a deep respect, appreciation, reverence, love for it, if you see that it's important for you and your well-being overall, it will become a habit. So why on earth do we do these other things? Why do we drink ourselves into oblivion? Why do we get into relationships that are so toxic? Why do we become so toxic? We know that's not good for us. Well, because somewhere along the line we were told that that's the way we're supposed to be. And the way we're supposed to be is what is expected of us. And so we look at that on some psychological level as being what's supposed to be. And if we're not that, then we're not healthy. We're not like everybody else. We're not suitable. We don't fit in. Can't stand up for ourselves in that situation, so we have to become more toxic than the other one. But reality is, the more that happens, the more you lose yourself, the more you have lost yourself. So those tendencies, put them to the side. Don't push them away. Don't be like, get out of here attitude because you're not welcome anymore. No, don't do that, because it's just going to make it pissed. And then it's going to sit in your gut. And it's going to be like, a ticking bomb waiting to explode. We don't take our anger and shove it under the carpet or try to hide it. No. You know what we do with it? We sit. Just like you all sat this weekend. Whatever it was for those retreat attendees that you sat with this weekend, you sat with it. You didn't talk to anybody about it. You didn't complain about it. You didn't hold it up for everybody to see. You didn't put it on a pedestal. You didn't try to destroy it. The only thing that you could do was sit with it. And I would venture to say that to some degree it resolved itself in a given moment. To some degree, when you allowed it to, it resolved. It reconciled itself. And what did it reconcile itself to? This. because this is all the power. And those other fluctuations are just waves on the surface of a very large ocean of peace. The waves have no choice but to settle back down eventually. But we might sit there in silence and say, oh, now I'm mad. Now I need somebody to talk to. Oh, I can't believe she's making us sit here for a whole hour. This is not reasonable. This is hard. This is harsh. I'm mad at her. She's not a nice person. I bet she doesn't even always wear orange. And guess what? I don't. Who was it the other day? Somebody was in the hall. Jenna, was it you? Yeah. I came walking out. I had green on. She went, what? Every once in a while, and like when I'm traveling, I like to go incognito, exactly. So what happens initially is that we think that we've earned that anger. We think that we've earned that story, and we try to keep it. We try to stoke the fire underneath of it. We might even try to prove the piece wrong, illegitimize it, and say, no, my anger is far too strong and powerful. It's been with me my whole life. It's like, no, it hasn't, but okay. It's been with me for as long as I can remember. No, that's not true either. Because 2 seconds from now, you're going to tell me a great story about how happy you were when you went to go see Wicked last week. So we just have this unrealistic understanding about our emotions, and we think I'm an angry person, I'm a great person, loving person, patient person, impatient person, and we use these labels on ourselves. And when we sit down and we sit with them with no place else to put them, they are thought processes that will go right back to the ocean of peace as soon as we let them. As soon as we let them. Does that mean they're not going to come back up again as another wave? No, it doesn't mean not. They'll be back. They'll be back, some other form, You'll feel irritated. You'll have some kind of memory. Somebody will slam the door. Something will happen. And there'll be another wave. Because that's what life is. Life is a series of waves. But never allow yourself to forget that underneath of those waves is the ocean. And that the ocean is peace. So you come to a silent retreat, or you take a vow of silence for a day or an hour. And I strongly suggest that people do it on a regular basis. You can be at home and take a vow of silence every Friday. And if that's too hard, then you can do it every Friday morning. And if that's too hard, then you can do it for the first hour that you wake up in the morning. And if that's too hard, tough, do it anyway. No, you can start wherever you need to start. The practice meets you where you're at. You just got to start. That's all you have to do. So you don't have to come to a Vipassana, but it's nice because then other people are being quiet too. And there's no dog licking your face or phone ringing, things like that. Although there might be a squeaky door here or there. But generally speaking, you've got all these other individuals who are going through the same thing that you're going through, trying to reconcile the difference between choosing that and choosing this. And finding out that peace and stillness and silence are the most powerful path to making that choice. There's lots of benefits to stillness and silence, tons of benefits. The first one is when you're still for a period of time, even if you're uncomfortable at first, even if the knees ache and the low back is like, oh my God, there's still so many benefits to sitting still for a while. That once you learn how to prop yourself properly, and you can sit for a period of time, your nervous system relaxes. There's not a person in this room who doesn't have the experience of fight, flight, or freeze these days. It's a chronic condition in our society. It just is. But when you sit for extended periods of time, your nervous system goes, oh, okay, yay. And you know how important that is? That's everything. That is everything. Your nervous system is you. You and your nervous system are a reflection of one another. So if you're running around like a crazy person, trying to get to this party and that person and this person and do that and do this, and you're never stopping, and you can just talk and do. Well, your health is going to reflect that at some point. Because you're always going to be up here, vibrating like, and I don't mean high vibration, I just mean like, you're going to be up here with this movement all the time. In Ayurveda, your doshas are going to be all kind of messed up. Especially your vata. The air and movement dosha is going to be out of whack. And then it's going to be harder and harder and harder to settle. So you would do yourself a favor starting today, 5 minutes of silence every morning. And every day increase it by 1 minute. Until when? Until you get to what? Does anybody remember? Until you get to your age. And then what do? Keep going. Exactly. 1 additional minute every day for the rest of your life. Eventually, there won't be any minutes left. That's good. So get your nervous system into that place where it's healthier. Because your nervous system is not only a direct reflection of you in this life, but it's also the navigator of all the other organs of the body. It tells them what to do and how hard to work and how much to rest. And if the nervous system is in a state of fight, flight, freeze, then it's saying to everybody, no rest for you. Be on guard. Be on the lookout. And so what happens? Your whole body's constantly on the lookout, and you find your shoulders up to here, and you're like so contracted, and it's hard to smile. Smile. Everybody. Big smile. I want to see pearly whites. Right? That's so important. Do you know that smiling is good for your nervous system? It is so good for your nervous system to smile. It really is. Because a smile is a reassurance, not to anybody else, but to you. If you smile to yourself, it's a reassurance to you. I'm okay in this moment. No matter what the worries out there are that I've been choosing, here I am fine. And the reality is that there's not one moment of this life from birth to death that is not true. In every single moment, you are fine. You are okay. Now, I can hear it. Your voices are so loud. Well, that's not true. Because what about what I'm suffering? What about what I'm hurting? What about what I broke my arm? No. You were still fine. You broke your arm. Your arm is not you. Your arm is your arm. When you put mine in front of it, it's an object. It's not you. It's my car, my bicycle. It's not me. It's my life. And my life is not me. My arm is not me. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when you look at you, go into that space and look at yourself, which you need to have some silence to do. Then you find you're always okay. And that little reservoir of okayness that exists here is what supports you through the broken arm, the broken knee, the broken down car, the broken world, the broken everything. That's what supports you. That's what gives you the capacity to breathe through the difficulties to some degree. Even if you don't think you are, you are. And so think about it. The last crisis situation that you had, how'd you handle that? Was it easy to handle, big crisis situation? Or were you just tied up in knots and feeling like you weren't doing it well or right or at all, right? But you did do something, because the universe will never give you anything you cannot handle. You will handle everything you're given. You may not like the way you handle it. You may not like that you have to handle it, but you will. But now, you sit in stillness. You have some stillness in your life, some silence in your life. And that tiny little reservoir suddenly becomes known to you that it's not just a little reservoir. It's a bigger ocean. And suddenly, you start to be able to breathe through things that you previously thought would be impossible to breathe through. You begin to recognize that it's not just a coping mechanism to get through the hard times, like a drink would be for some people, right? It's not just a coping mechanism. It's actually a way of life. And it's a healthy way of life. It's a way of life that supports your nervous system, which in turn supports you wholly and completely. And it's a great way of life. To breathe through every moment, to breathe through every situation, to remind yourself that, yeah, sometimes you have to take strong action in circumstances. But just because you have to take strong action doesn't mean you have to have a huge reaction. You can have strong action to support what is needed and still breathe through it. You might even have better energy, because the breath is that, right? Is that all making sense? We had a couple of people come in after we started, so you've officially been released from your vow of silence at this point. Any questions or reflections right now from anybody? Oh, no?
You speak about samadhi, and I have a lot of work on those first 7 steps, so it's not something that I really know, but I am wondering, is that, you said it's not enlightenment.
Oh, it is.
It is. So it's used synonymously, like when people talk about, like...
It is, but it's also used incorrectly. The word enlightenment is used. That's what I was trying to say. The word enlightenment, the word self-realization, the word samadhi is often used incorrectly. It's looked at as some kind of woo-woo, out-of-body experience that's, Yeah. But it's not. It's actually a very grounded experience. It's a very grounding experience. It's almost impossible to explain what it is, because they're really... if you have reached the state of samadhi, then your egotistical personality is not present. And your entire personality is egotistical. So your personality is null. And you simply exist. And you exist as peace. And so that you exist as peace, you know yourself. Because you are peace. But then the ego comes forward and says, well, what about that person who irritated you? That's not peace. That's your personality. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes. Is it the ego, or is it the outside drawing you back out because in order to
it's both.
Be fully realized, I would think you need to be depends how you use the word out. I mean, there's obviously distractions that could be completely ignored, but when you spend your time, I mean, if you're adding up your moments of silence and your moments of chanting and your moments of yoga practice and all that, like, you're taking away from your time that you're maybe genuinely giving out into the world.
Yeah.
Right? So,
absolutely. So it's a little bit of a complicated matter, but basically we can boil it down to this. The more time you spend in your sadhana, your spiritual practice, the better for you, for everybody. Now, just because a person has a strong spiritual sadhana doesn't mean that they're not going to get lulled. And what lulls them is the fact that we exist in a body in a natural environment. And in that natural environment and in this body, there is active 3 qualities: passion, lethargy, and a kind of balance. And they're always warring with one another. And the gunas, exactly, yeah. And so, yeah, the gunas of, and they even say in the scriptures, the Tattva Bodha, the Bhagavad Gita, so many of the scriptures say it, that an individual, no matter how enlightened one is, so what that means is no matter how long the periods of time one exists in a state of self-awareness, whether one has little minutes here and there, a couple of seconds here and there, or is in what seems to be a permanently fixed state of self-awareness, that every person who is in a body is susceptible to those gunas, simply because they're in a body. And so the gunas are what are drawing us back to the outside world, trying to tell us you're of the world. You're of the world. You're of the world. And our sadhana is what helps us to establish the truth that no, I am not of the world. I'm in the world, sure. And I can even walk through that world and maintain the discipline of my spiritual path, which is what allows us to interact with one another in a right way. You know, they have in the tradition what's called the right way and the wrong way. And the right way is the ethics, and the wrong way is not the ethics. It's the opposite of the ethics. And so it's like right company and wrong company. Right company, or good company and bad company, it's called sometimes too. And it's suggested that if you are sincere in your heart and you feel you're sincere in your heart on your path, that you really want to know the answer to the question, who am I? Who am I really? Then you need to limit or completely stop your engagement with wrong company. And you need to keep right company. Because wrong company is going to derail you. Because they invoke the gunas and they boost them up. Have you ever seen a person in your life who is like chaotic and they walk into the room and everything just starts to, right? That's the gunas. It's not the person. It's the gunas at war within the person. And so if you are keeping company with that, then you are susceptible to that immediately. So understanding the gunas, having a dedicated time for your practice, bringing your practice off the mat, off the meditation cushion, and into your relationships, into not just your human relationships, but your relationships with everything, with food, with distractions, whatever that might be, is really one of the best things that we can do for ourselves. And sitting in a place of silence on a regular basis is what builds up the resiliency and the courage necessary, the strength and the insight to be able to do that. Because otherwise, people tell you, well, you're weird doing that stuff. And somewhere in the back of our mind, we think, well, am I weird? Right? So doubt gets planted because of those gunas. So the spiritual sadhana is evidence of itself. It is proof of itself, of its own validity, of its own value to you. So the more that you practice it, so you don't have to raise a hand, but anybody here who is on medication to regulate a medical condition on a regular basis, right? You took the medication, you saw that it benefited you, and now you take it regularly, right? Religiously, right? Well, you know meditation is medicine. That's why sometimes people say medication instead of meditation. So you know that it's good for you. You know that it's going to alter something in you to make it healthier. Why isn't that as religiously done or dedicated as taking, the blood pressure pill or whatever the medication is that the doctor prescribed for you? You don't even need somebody to prescribe it for you. You can just choose it for yourself. You were born with that wisdom, So I do think that, number one, we don't have self-realization necessarily as a long-term experience. It starts off with a couple of seconds here, a couple of seconds there. And if we continue in our practice, then it grows and grows and grows. And self-realization, the knowledge of the self, is samadhi. But the moment that you think to yourself, oh, I got this, that's not samadhi. The moment that you think to yourself, I'm going to go out and do something good in the world today, that's not samadhi. That's your ego. The moment that you think to yourself, wow, I helped those people, that's not samadhi. That's your ego. The moment that you think, I did this, it's me, that's not samadhi. That's the ego. Samadhi is silent. Oh, yeah, samadhi is silent. It has no need to tell anybody anything. Just like it's sitting inside of you and it's not saying, hey, I'm here. When are you going to notice? Right? No, it's silent. It's silent. So the moment you feel compelled to tell the story, that's not samadhi. That's not enlightenment. That's not self-realization. It doesn't mean that an individual didn't have an experience of samadhi and is now absolutely confused, confounded, and like overwhelmed by it. And that now what they're doing is they're trying to take that experience that they had and force it into this moment and say, well, I would still be there if only you understood and were happy for me. And that's not samadhi. That's the ego trying to screw it all up for you. Yeah. If you have, when I was in India, so I've always been a very vivid dreamer. And in my meditations, I always envision. I always see so many different things. Sometimes really, really clearly, and sometimes just kind of a kaleidoscope of things. But I never knew if I saw colors. That was the only thing I could never remember. So we're in India, I'm at my guru's ashram, and we're doing this like day-long meditation thing. And so I sit down, and almost immediately, boom, the visions start. And they are so vibrant, like the salmon color of your shawl and the gold color of your jacket and all the colors. Boom, blues and purples and reds and yellows and golds. And I'm just sitting there. And before I knew it, it was like, however many hours later, and he rings the bell. And I'm just like dumbfounded because I had never had a colorful experience before. Always had an experience, but never knew if it was color. So I go to him after everybody walks out and I said, can I ask you a question? He goes, absolutely. I said, so I don't know. This might sound crazy, but as I'm sitting there, it's like flowers and faces and eyes and things I don't know what they are and fireworks, but not really fireworks, but colors, purple and orange and red. And he's listening. Very intelligent. This is what Swamiji would do. He'd be like, And I look at him and I said, what does it mean? And he goes, nothing. And I went, huh? He goes, it means nothing. He goes, it's a nice gift though, isn't it? It was really wonderful to experience, wasn't it? And I went, oh my Lord, it was beautiful. He goes, then be grateful for it. And don't look for it again. Because if you look for it, you have become attached to it. And if you are attached to it, it will evade you. Because attachment makes you miss things. So instead, just be grateful that you had the experience. Continue with your practice, and maybe it'll come back again. And maybe it won't. But don't let your practice be dependent upon that. Because your practice should never be dependent on a particular outcome. Otherwise, you'll be sorely disappointed. And that was like one of the most profound things he ever taught me. Because then I took that and I started to apply it to everything. Oh, you remembered my birthday this year? That's so great. You can remember the next 10? Oh, you said good morning to me today. But you're not going to say it tomorrow? So you just have gratitude in the moment for what comes to you. And you don't worry about it if it's not repeated. In part because you can't control what other people are going through. You don't know what their sorrow and what their suffering is. You don't know. You just don't know. And second of all, nobody owes you a happy birthday. No, I don't care who they are. If they're your kid or your spouse or your lover, nobody owes you a happy birthday. So if someone says happy birthday, be happy that they said, be joyful, be grateful, and then do something nice for them. In the tradition, what we call Jayanti. Jayanti is celebration day. And a Jayanti is usually the birthday of God. And there's a lot of them. Because there's Ganesha Jayanti and Durga Jayanti, this and that one. However many names there are, there's that many Jayantis. And on a Jayanti, you're not meant to be expecting things for you. You need to go out and do service to others. And to not say, well, it's my birthday, so I'm out doing service because it's my birthday. It's my birthday, so I'm going to do something nice because it's my birthday. And I didn't even get cake for my birthday. No, you don't say those kinds of things. You just know, this is the day that I was given the gift of this life. And the purpose of this life is to serve. And so as a reminder to myself to serve on every other day, I'm going to serve on this day. And that's an internal conversation. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Thank you. I always do that to go off here and off there. Tim, did you have a question or a comment?
You answered it.
Okay.
I was going to ask about in the beginning. You were talking about expectations in relationships and how they're really attachments, but you actually just covered it.
Yeah. Imagine what a relationship would be like if you didn't require things of your partner. If you didn't require. Because, like, why do we require things anyway? Require a phone call every Sunday at 5 o'clock. I used to be told I had to call my grandmother every Sunday at 5 o'clock after I was grown up. And I was like, what if I want to call you on a Tuesday? Then I still got to call you on Sunday? What if I'm doing something on Sunday? What if I'm meditating? But no, it was, there weren't many things that she was like a stickler about, but that was something she was like, you got to call me. I'm like, well, what's going to happen if I don't? It's not that we don't see each other. Of course we do. But that was her way of having some kind of a security net. And I try not to do that with my kids. If they want to talk to me, they talk to me. The one never stops texting. So I know he's fine. And Casey and I see each other every day. I don't need them to call me. It's just not necessary. But sometimes we do that. We put those kind of requirements on somebody because we're looking for some kind of a security. So if I feel insecure, and like my son has sent me a meme for 3 hours or something, then I try to sit. And so, hint, I try to sit in stillness and silence and investigate why I'm feeling insecure. But if all I do is pick up the phone and text him and say, why haven't you texted me in 3 hours? Then what I'm doing is I'm avoiding dealing with what's happening within me. I'm avoiding that. And that's just going to perpetuate that behavior. And I'll do it again and again and again and again. So one of the major benefits, besides your nervous system, toning your nervous system, is that when you sit in silence and contemplate on your own behavior, your behavior starts to change. Because you see the parts that are ludicrous, and you see the parts that are beneficial, and you change what needs to be changed slowly over time. And you keep what is keepable, what is nourishing, what is good, what is appropriate. Over time, not overnight. It's never overnight. So, they say, divinity is perfect in all of its perfection. It got one thing, could have done just a little better. It could be overnight. It could be like that. But here's the thing, it can be. Oh, so now I'm just going to put a little twist in here because I just said it's not overnight. It's not going to be overnight. For 99.9999999%, it's not going to be overnight because we're just too darn attached to the drama of it all and to the back and forth and the story of it all. But for some very small, tiny percentage of people, it will be instantaneous. It will be immediately. They will have an epiphany, a realization, and their entire being will change. Exactly to that self-realized existence. And I don't know how true it is or how true it's not. But the one who wrote his second book was A New World. The first one, who? Eckhart Tolle is supposed to, he's supposed to be one of those people who, he was an alcoholic. He was not a nice person, a lot of problems, and then woke up one morning and said it was just like day and night, but more drastic than that he just completely changed and he had this epiphany and it was instantaneous. And like I said, I don't know if that's true or not true.
But he also sat on a park bench for about 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's not instantaneous.
Although maybe it was, because why did he sit there for 2 years? He sat there because he knew. And so the mind can be immediate, But it takes a little time for the habits to line up with what the mind knows. So we have this epiphany, but the body, you know what? You carry something, and you'll appreciate this, carry something in your right hand all the time, shopping bags and whatever, suitcases and whatever. And that's your habit. And now you've got an injury and you can't do it anymore. You're supposed to carry it in the left hand, but your body wants to go to the right because that's what it's accustomed to. So the mind knows, but the body has habits. And so it takes time for them to catch up. So maybe he sat there waiting. Okay, when are they going to catch up? It's almost there. Yeah, you know. And so a wise individual knows that. And that's where patience comes in. Because can you imagine sitting on a park bench that period of time? Just every day, sitting there. You know? It requires patience, resiliency, requires faith. So that's the other thing too, is to know that, you know, this idea of breathing in and breathing out, taking your time, slowing down your breath, is really important because it's cultivating patience and resiliency within you, so that while you're waiting for everything else to catch up to the epiphany, you're able to wait and not just throw it off and say, oh my God, must have just been like a one-time freak thing, never going to happen again. No, you wait it out. You wait for everything else to smooth out. Does that make sense? And do a time check. Yes.
Are animals in the world but not of it?
It's a great question. I love animals. I'm an animal activist, always have been. And I'm also a trained archaeologist and anthropologist. And I've spent a lot of time with evolutionary theory, and from its beginnings all the way up to the way that it's perceived of as now. And I would have these interesting conversations with people in the field who still have that little bit of a mindset that somehow humans are kind of leading the way. We're like almost at the top of the ladder and everything else is at the bottom. And I would rattle their feathers, because I would say, but what if we're the ones at the bottom of the ladder? And all those animals that you think are lower life forms are actually at the top or closer to the top, because they don't have attachment and avoidance. They don't have ignorance of their condition. They don't fight what is. They may have spontaneous reactions to things like pain and whatnot, but it's not like us, you know. Their story doesn't go on that we know about. But every person in this room has a story from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So-and-so did this to me, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, a dog, right? Look at a dog. Human's best friend. You can hurt that dog. Please don't. But you can hurt that dog. And the next time that dog sees you, it will typically come to you. Because, you know, eventually it will learn fear. Yes, eventually it will learn fear. Fear will become its learned behavior because of the human influence. But the dog's nature is to just be in the moment and be like, oh my God, you're home. I'm going to lick your face and kiss you all over and steal your bag and have you chase me through the house and run out the door. And, yeah. So animals, non-human animals, non-human beings are in the moment so much more than we are. And the reason for that is because our egos are really out of whack. We think that we're above nature. We think we can control nature. We think that we have something up on nature because we know a little bit of science. Because we can innovate a few things, like an airplane, so we you know, or a car, or medicine. So we think we're somehow better than nature. But what we don't understand, what we have forgotten, is that we are nature. We are nature, and we are not nature at her best, but we are nature. And everything that we innovate has come from what nature has created. So she is the author, not us. We're simply innovators. We are not inventors. I don't know where this was. It was in a book I read once. He was talking about the concept of invention versus innovation. And I think it had something to do with Edison, Thomas Edison. But anyway, maybe he's the one who said it. He said, there are no inventors, there are only innovators, because every single thing that was needed to make the light bulb already existed. It was just that my mind innovated putting those pieces together in a certain way. But they already existed, so I can't take full credit. And that's the truth of the matter. And we're so worried about credit as a species. We're like, I want credit. That's why there's so many freaking yoga books out there. There's so many yoga books. My yoga. This is my yoga method. It's like, no, it's not. It's the Patanjali method. Or it's the Tantra method. Or it's this method. Or it's that method. We always look for so much credit. What is the matter with just saying, like, it's yoga? Patanjali wrote it thousands of years ago. Well, he wrote one of them. There's many paths within the yoga, So Ashtanga is classical yoga. But Ashtanga is one modern name. And Jiva Mukti is part of it, and but everybody puts these names in. I love Jiva Mukti. I love Sharon and David. They're teachers of mine, and I adore them. But in the past, they were teachers of mine. But like they named it Jiva Mukti because it people get interested, and what they were trying to do was build a lineage, build a community. So they needed something to make it exciting for people, basically, Don't get me wrong, their hearts are in absolutely the right place. They're amazing individuals. I'm just saying that they're a very well-known lineage, But literally, they're based in Ashtanga. So why not just say it's Ashtanga? They do, though. They always honor their teachers. They honor the tradition and where it came from for them. They go back to the root. Many, many teachers don't do that. They don't honor their root. They think that to have a teacher is an embarrassment of some sort or another, and that's just ridiculous. To have a teacher and to have to know the lineage is to say that you have roots, man. You're not one of those little air plants that don't have roots. You have roots that go down into the soils of the earth. A lot of experience there, rather than just nothing to hold on to. Okay, I could go on forever, but I won't. But again, I just want to say, I wasn't saying anything deriding about Sharon and David. They are two of the most amazing, wonderful people in the world. I'm just saying that, why do we always have to name things? It's just yoga. And in some instances, it's a particular approach to yoga. So it's classical yoga, or it's Ashtanga, or it's Patanjali's yoga. Meditation is meditation. Asana is asana. And the rest of it is just details of the story. That's all. Yeah. Any other questions or reflections? Yes, Jeff.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. Great turnout for the weekend, but I haven't been at the ashram for quite some time. It's good to be back. Good to feel welcome back home. Heard a lot of interesting things, and as you said in the yin practice about being this basically operates on donations and volunteers. I'm grateful I was a volunteer in the past, not to be so again. But what I find interesting, what we see in the news, sometimes I have to turn it off. Remember there was a saying years ago, kill your television. And it's amazing, it just disturbs me sometimes. But the thing was, with all this hurricane action that took place in our country, especially down south, my cousins in Tampa, and then these people are on television. Oh, we're shipping this food down, this clothing down, like your 15 minutes of fame. And it's like, I've learned to do, one of my mantras is do something good and not tell anyone. And sometimes it's so hard. It's like that little kid, like with a secret. Ooh, I can't wait to tell somebody. And, coming from a state of humility and grace is learn to achieve that. And I was thinking, hearing about, animals and, are they of this world or not? And there's something about, do animals have consciousness or the sense to reason? And I've, seen how we learn from nature versus nurture. And, natives, learned a lot of their hunting practices and gathering practices by watching what the animals did.
Mm-hmm.
What streams drink from. You see the deer drinking from the stream, the water's safe.
Mm-hmm.
So we learn a lot from them. They're great teachers. And, it's like, and we try to teach them. And sometimes it backfires. But yeah, that ego, the id, and all, remembering what I learned in college classes and all that. But, the self, learning to get rid of self in the process, be selfless,
Mm-hmm.
doing selfless service, not about, because when I'm serving others, I can't help but to help myself.
Mm-hmm.
It comes back like, it pays it forward, and it's like a circular, of life. And it is so interesting. In a way, I've come to things understanding, but it's like trying to love others, and it's very hard when you say that toxic, like being, that's the $10,000 word of the day, toxic. And when I can detect like toxic from a distance or negative energy, when I'm in a good place, I attract good things. I attract positive energy when I'm positive. And, that self, and I'll pass with this. It's hard to love others. I mean, if you don't love yourself, if you're hating on yourself and not liking yourself, where you're at.
Absolutely, it's difficult. And I do just want to point out, too, that, thank you so much for what you shared, Jeff.
Sure.
But and you're absolutely correct that if you think about positivity, if you think good things, then good things do come to you. But so do bad things. So do difficult things. Just because we're making the choice to be here rather than out there doesn't mean that out there isn't trying like heck to get here. So we oftentimes I think that we get a little bit disillusioned. We think that, well, because I'm on a spiritual path, because I meditate, because I practice yoga asana, that everything else should be peachy keen. And no, that's not what the purpose of the practice is. There's no way. This world is too chaotic. It's too complicated. The world is never going to be peachy keen. And life is never going to be easy completely. What the practice does is it makes you easier as you're moving along. You don't get so caught up in it. And then you're able to see the goodness that comes. So that's the choice. The choice is if you're coming here, then you recognize, if you're coming into the heart of yourself, you're basically thinking good thoughts, and so you're seeing good things. If you're choosing out there, I don't know what you're getting, but it's not that, unless you've cultivated the skill through your practice necessary to be able to keep that at an appropriate distance and to be able to cultivate everything that your heart holds for you. So yeah, very potent. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Anybody else before we end? Yes.
What you just said about it's not that the world or life becomes easier, but you become easier, reminded me of a poem called It's Rough. And it goes, my days are sandpaper. Hopefully I'll be soft someday.
Oh, I like that. That's wonderful. It's called Rough. Is that the name of it? Rough. Mm. Yeah, it's true. Welcome the sandpaper. Let's sit tall and close the eyes. Take a nice breath in and a nice breath out. And draw the hands together in front of the heart. And we'll lift our voices in one Om and the All Beings mantra. Take a breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om Shri Matre Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.